Beautiful. I'm here with Samonte's pod now with Jennifer and Bee, and we're going to talk a little bit about their process. So how has working with artists of different disciplines informed your own work?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I've never really gone through the design process of making a project with other people. And so we ended up, coming up with a design that involved glass pieces that were sort of outside my normal style. I do a lot of organic forms, and the design was going to involve like precision and consistency. And yeah, so that took me a bit outside of my comfort zone. But in the end, I was really kind of excited to see how well I was able to execute it. And it's made me think about in future projects, I think I'll be more likely to involve some more precise, consistent pieces. And I've had a lot of ideas in the past about marrying glass with other mediums, actually specifically felt, but I guess I never really had the need to do that. And this project brought that on. And so I'm really excited to move forward with those two materials together, and also just maybe explore some other mediums that I could bring together with my glass.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, working with other artists was really fun, like in terms of the design process, in terms of bouncing ideas off each other. I work pretty much solitary in my studio, so I don't know, I just found the collaboration aspect really rewarding and really just fun in a way that it's not the same when I'm just in my studio making art by myself.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very similarly. I'm a real big fan of mixed media and have never had the opportunity. Like I always had thoughts in my mind of like, oh, this, metal aspect would be interesting to incorporate with textile or glass. And actually we had some reference material with felt and glass specifically. And yeah, so that was really exciting to actually have that come to fruition. And yeah, just opening up more possibilities for future projects, like even, just making that ask, like, I have this idea, Bee, would you mind making me this glass piece?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah,
Samonte, could you make me this metal piece? Yeah.
totally. Yeah, and I felt like specifically your expertise in terms of just like construction and measurements and all that, like I like have visions, but I have no idea how to actually construct anything. So it was really cool to be like, I like this idea, and then you actually know how to make that happen. That's really awesome.
Yeah, like I feel like often you think, okay, well now I have to learn how to do this whole new thing.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, no, I don't. I just have to find someone who does that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And bring them in. So
yeah, the collaboration was amazing. It's exciting.
yeah.
Agreed.
And also like the performance aspect of it is something that I never visualized myself as someone involved in performance. And I think after doing this, I realized there's so much more than just getting on the stage or getting in front of the camera. There's all this, support around the performance. And yeah, I had so much fun with that part. I'm like, okay, let's do this again.
Yeah, it was awesome having you both there as support. Like I just felt like totally doted on all day, which was really nice. And just like I had two people who were helping me with stuff all day. It was really nice.
You are the star.
Yeah.
Could you share some favorite moments throughout the process of this piece?
There's so many.
Yeah.
Just coming out of a pandemic, and like largely we're all talking about, we're singular artists who work alone in a studio, like, and having been through almost 2 years of isolation, just coming together and working with other people was huge and very life affirming, and so grateful for this opportunity to do that.
Yeah, hardcore agree. Yeah. It
100%.
was just even like, like you said, living in isolation for 2 years, like, we were friends before, but it's like we couldn't really act on anything for a couple of years. So like, I don't know, it felt like for me, it was like all this energy around it, where we're like, really excited about the project, but also just really excited to be with other humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I think we all have one night in particular where, so the hood or like the mask head piece that I'm wearing in it started out as like a full felted top that Janet made. Was it for school?
Yeah,
School
it was for
project?
school.
So it was like this basically felted hood. And our idea was to use that as a base and kind of cut into it to make some different shapes and spikes. And it was just like, it was the first night where we all just kind of were in the same space creating together.
Mhm.
And it was just so much fun and hilarious and just, I don't know, like the best. The best night.
Yeah.
It was a real risk-taking moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was like no going back. We were just cutting huge holes in
Yeah.
in the piece. We're like, all right, I hope
Yeah.
this looks good.
We got one chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we kept saying, is this too weird?
Yeah.
Just kind of a theme throughout.
Yeah. But I think, yeah, it was largely very weird, but that was part of it.
Yes,
Like
it
we
was.
really wanted to make the invisible visible, and yeah, we went just like full camp, full like excess, and
Yeah, and I think we all struggle with varying degrees of perfectionism too. So I think like that night in particular was like pushing all of our boundaries in terms of like letting go of control, because once we make a hole in this thing, there's no changing it really.
Yeah.
So and I also thought it was fun because I feel like a lot of our personalities came out too, where it's like we all had like different aspects of it that were, I don't know, just really fun. It made me feel like, I don't know, we got to know each other better. I feel like through that night too.
Definitely.
Yeah. And back to the previous question about informing my practice. Yeah, we had some really good discussions about perfectionism and how we work as artists. And I feel like that this opened up just letting go a little bit more than
100%.
I have in the past.
Yes.
What was the original vision for this project, and how did it change as the project evolved?
Okay, so when I was really originally approached with this idea, I think something I've been thinking about over the last 2 years since the pandemic is about isolation, about similarities of the COVID experience to the experience of people with disabilities. You know, you can't do the things you want to do. You can't go the places you want to go. You can't gather with the people you want to gather with. Like, I just feel like there's isolation. There's like so much time on your hands, and just feeling separate from everyone else. I felt like those were all really strong themes that the collective were experiencing, but also individuals with disabilities also experience. So that was my main thought, is kind of trying to do something around disability, chronic pain. And originally I was thinking I wouldn't be the performer. I would be doing something else in the project. Mostly because of my health stuff. I didn't want to put the whole project on me and then basically have it fail because I have health stuff going on. But the performer that I originally asked wasn't available. So I started thinking, you know, what would be the next best thing. And I did have this song that I've been working on. I wrote the first verse in like the first few months of the pandemic, and have been thinking about, okay, like at first I was like, oh, this isn't relevant. This isn't going to be relevant anymore. And then the second wave came, and then the third wave came, and then the fourth wave came. So I'm like, okay, this is obviously going to be still relevant. So, yeah, I thought about that song, and what I was thinking is, it feels like such a vulnerable topic for me. It feels like a very vulnerable song, and like to have that be contrasted with this like empowered basically garment that I could wear to kind of wear as protection, but also wear as like a visual statement of where my pain is. Yeah, that's kind of how it grew. And then asking Bee and asking Jen, like they both also have health stuff, chronic health stuff that they have going on. So I felt like the three of us together would make a really good team, because we all have different, you know, we all have different things going on, but also have experienced very similar things as well. Yeah, so that's kind of the the idea and kind of how it progressed over time.
Awesome. And what were some of the driving inspirations, feelings behind this project?
I think some of the driving forces were definitely like isolation, chronic pain, like the collective experience of living through a global pandemic. And I'm sorry, losing my train of thought here for a sec. I think one of the things that we were really looking at is like, because there isn't a lot of like non-binary fashion or like gender non-conforming fashion out there, I think we were also looking at, you know, what does that look like, and you know, what are some of our inspirations behind that, because there isn't a ton of designers designing for people that are in the middle or a mix of different genders. So I think that was a lot of it too. We pulled a lot from like just like some of the fashion, like current fashion trends that are going on. Like one of the big inspirations in terms of for the shoulder pieces was Little Nas and his cape that he was wearing at the Met Gala. So that was a big inspiration in terms of just like visually, he just looked really strong. I loved that kind of broadness in his shoulders, and that was definitely a big inspiration for me.
And just the extravagance of that event, and I think we gave ourselves a lot of room to really push the boundaries and what
Hence the, is this too weird?
Is this too weird?
No, not too weird. Not too weird.
Not weird enough. But
Yeah.
like what you were saying earlier about, because I made a joke at some point about when you were working on the felt piece, which was based off of some pain maps that you had drawn. So that was kind of the vulnerable piece.
Right.
So you were working on this pain body, and then I was working on the armor, which was like, But I just, back to probably my favorite moments was just when we finally had the whole piece together and we had you all dressed up with the makeup. You were just like, I feel so powerful.
It's true.
And that really made my heart sing.
Putting the garment on, definitely for the first time, it's just like I felt like I hit some serious butt with my disabled butt. Just it was really empowering and awesome.
I feel like your pain maps were sort of a source of inspiration from the beginning too. And I was doing the felting part for mapping out the pain, and I was really struggling. How do I illustrate this pain via felt? And I was working with the felt one night, and I had just gotten an X-ray results back on my hand. And I've been having pain in some of my joints, but nothing came back from the X-ray. And I was sort of thinking about how pain, it's like, well, where is this pain? Like, if it can't see it in my hand, like, where does it exist? And just thinking about how, it's not just that pain's invisible, but we have not a great understanding of what pain is and where it lives in our body. So I, did some Googling, and, and also the material itself was sort of looking organic, almost like a cellular or something. I think something was maybe going wrong, actually. I was carding wool for the very first time, and there were these little nodules, and I was like, oh, this looks really cool. And so all that sort of happened in the same moment. And I thought, okay, like neural pathways, the brain exists in our brain, in our bodies, and it's all connected through this network, and which sort of inspired me for the felt to include these gold threads that attach each sort of neuron to itself. And so the map ended up being sort of a neural pain map, I guess, in a sense.
And I guess just background, pain map it's a tool used a lot by medical professionals to help patients communicate where their pain exists in their body. And I had an accident in 2010 where I was hit by a car, broke my neck. So since then, I've been drawing these pain maps, trying to, communicate to my doctors and physiotherapists, like, this is where my pain is. So we kind of, I have so many of them. I thought a while back, like, it'd be interesting to try to incorporate this into some sort of art project. And that's kind of where that came up. It was like, oh, maybe these maps can be a map for our garment. Kind of thing. So,
Yeah. Also led us a little bit to think about, like, why don't we could continue this project, and like, what would our pain
Yeah.
look like on
Right.
the outside,
Definitely.
which is like interesting to think about.
totally.
Because yeah, normally if you go to the doctor or hospital, the 0 sad face to the 10,
Right.
or wait, opposite, 0
Yeah.
happy face to 10 sad face.
Right.
Pain scale is not very accurate, and people feel pain in different ways or have different tolerances. Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of like layers of meaning and
Mhm.
discussions that we've had, and yeah, I feel like such a growing opportunity.
Yeah, that's true.
It is.
Last question. Samonte, you made an Instagram post while you were in the studio recording with Dave about a feeling of coming home while being in the studio. Could you speak a bit to that feeling and talk a bit about how artistic practices and spaces can feel like home?
Yeah, so it's been a while since I've recorded any music, and going and actually recording this song for the project. I got to go into Dave's studio, which was really great. I actually have a background in audio recording and engineering, so it's something I studied 20 years ago as a young queer in college. Just trying to find my way, and coming out as queer and then coming out as trans as a teenager, I had a lot of outside forces telling me that I was wrong and messed up and a sin and evil and all this other stuff. And music and recording and just like being with my guitar was a way that I comforted myself. I wrote songs to soothe myself. And I think in the beginning of this pandemic, I reached for my guitar for the first time in a long time, mostly because it was one of my only outside forms of entertainment. Like, you can only watch so many things on your computer before you're just like, hey, what to do next? And when I picked it up, I remembered why I started playing, and that hadn't happened in a long time for me. Like, I've been kind of focused on other artistic forms of performance and craft. And yeah, picking up my guitar, starting to write, and going to the studio, it just felt like my body remembered that feeling. And it was like this sense of calm and just like familiarity that I hadn't had with my guitar music in a long time. And I think, yeah, our bodies, I think we don't give our bodies credit enough for all that they do, but they also hold memory. And I think, yeah, like tapping into your body's intelligence and your body's memory can be a really powerful way to heal and also just like take care of yourself. Which is like, I think especially with the pandemic, people were kind of facing themselves more and more. Like having that alone time, having that reflection time, not having the distractions that they're used to be able to have. I think, yeah, it's just a common experience for a lot of people. And I feel like art is a great place to go when you're when you're trying to either process something or just take care of yourself. It's a really good, happy, joyful place to be.
Samonte, Bee, Jennifer, thank you so much for hanging out today and telling us a bit about this process. Terry is ready to introduce the next piece.